Good morning and welcome to SSUC, to Southminster Steinhauer United Church, where we are spiritual seekers united in community. What unites us is our desire to create community where we all belong. So whether you've been here 100 times or a handful, or this is your first time, we want you to feel like you belong. That you might do that at whatever pace you need. And that might be belonging in a social way or belonging privately and to yourself. And it doesn't matter, because you belong just as you are. This is a place where we are all safe to be ourselves, where we can question and ponder as we seek meaningful lives. And so whether we come here with heavy hearts or glad ones, with stress or with ease, we come here as the entire human family. All ages, all colors, all sizes, all abilities, all cultures, all genders, all sexualities, all religions or none. What unites us is our desire to create the community where we sit and we stand side by side and we grow together. So welcome. Welcome each and every one of you. Welcome to those of you who are part of the Ever Wonder Conference, who've been here together all weekend and having a wonderful time with each other, we hope. And welcome to all of those regulars and visitors to SSUC who join us here this morning, both in this room and online via our live stream and our YouTube channel. Welcome to all of you. It's in the spirit of that welcome that we honor the land that we find ourselves a part of. We call this place many names. We call it Edmonton. We call it Amiskwaciwâskahikan. We call it Treaty 6 territory. We call it home. And when we gather here, we acknowledge and respect the history, the tradition, the languages and cultures of diverse Indigenous peoples who have, for generations, called this home. The legacy and teaching that we can learn from them, the gratitude that we have to live, work, and make our homes on this land. So we commit together, today and always, to work for continued reconciliation and a good way for our relationships and our partnerships together. So as we come into this space and we find our way into our place that feels comfortable or a place that feels uncomfortable, depending on the circumstances, we welcome you and we join with you.
And we remind one another about some things that are happening in our life as a community, a spiritual community, and in our life as a civic community. We know we're in the midst of an election campaign, and we know that we have the privilege and duty of exercising the freedom we have to vote and an opportunity to inform ourselves. And so we're hosting in this community for the Riverbend constituency an All Candidates Forum that will be held on Thursday evening, October the 10th at 7 o'clock. If you live in this riding, or you have concerns that relate to this riding, or you can help us host that gathering, there's a sign-up sheet in the foyer to tell us what you're able to do to contribute to make that evening possible. We welcome all of you to come and hear from our candidates as we educate ourselves and learn about and dialogue about the issues that are before us as a community. Also, Operation Friendship, a community ministry that we participate in and provide meals for. We're having a little work bee on October 17th. That also, I think, is a Thursday morning at 9 a.m. There's a sign-up sheet in the foyer. If you can help us prepare for that day with our friends in the inner city, we'd be grateful for whatever help you can offer us. As Chris mentioned, this is the closing session of our time as an Ever Wonder conference, and we've been very delighted to be able to welcome Greta Vosper and Scott Kearns, who've been with us all weekend. And we don't have to say goodbye to them just yet. We get to share this spiritual gathering with them. Greta will speak to us in a little while, and Scott will be on the piano as we get to sing some of his music with him. Music we sing often in this community, and have the delight of being able to share it with you at the piano, Scott. So we welcome you, and Greta, beloved colleague and friend, person of deep integrity. I'm proud to call you my colleague, and we're so delighted that you're here with us this morning, and we have an opportunity in this wider community, those of us who've been part of Ever Wonder, and those of us who are part of SSUC, and those of us who are part of the wider community, to have this opportunity to share with you again. Those of you that are here for Ever Wonder, please join the community of Southminster Steinhauer United Church for coffee. We're going to do that in a little different way today than we usually do. We're going to have coffee out in the foyer, and it's even so beautiful you might even take your cup and just step outside into the sun. We're going to have coffee out there, and those of you that are here with Ever Wonder, lunch will be served as you've been receiving meals over the weekend in the small hall. After you've had time to have coffee around noon, we'll call you in there, and then you'll come back in here and find tables to enjoy. We have some closing things to do at that lunch, so please stay and join us for lunch and join us for our closing time together. If you missed Ever Wonder, you have an opportunity for Expressing Wonder. Same time next year, just not the same place. It's moving east to SSUC Saskatoon. We're going to gather in a little different way with a little different kind of program, a little different format, expressing wonder, but an opportunity again to come together as expansive spiritual seekers, to be together in the space where SSUC Saskatoon meets in St. Andrews College. And keep listening, because there'll be lots more coming your way. First weekend in October, October 2 to 4. And while you're having your coffee this morning, if you find it gets a little crowded in the foyer, or you're an extrovert, you can escape into our library and see what a wonderful collection of books we have there. Please help yourself to see what we have. Enjoy that. And there's also a quiet room. Won't be very quiet this morning, but it will be an escape room down at the end of the hall. So make yourself at home in the space today as we take our place with one another. This amazing community, we are who we are because of the gifts and time and contributions of so many, just like we're hearing this morning with our instrumentalists and musicians. So many who give their time and energy to make this spiritual community and all that it does possible. And you can support us financially. There's a slide that tells you some ways you can do that. If you eat, you can help support us by buying grocery cards, and they'll be available in the foyer this morning, somewhere in between coffee cups. So as we come to be here with one another, we sing ourselves into this space, we sing ourselves into this day, and we sing our gratitude for all the ways that life is being expressed in trees, in creatures, in beings, in the light within us. And so with Scott, we sing a piece of his music as we gather and call one another together in community.
It has been noted by the orchestra pit that this piece keeps changing keys and going up and up and up. and it was expressed as a beautiful challenge and a welcomed thing, right? I mean, I could have misinterpreted, but what I want you to catch with this, it's just a privilege to play this with you, is the idea of holding things up that are worthy. And by the time that we've gone up those keys and we're at the end and we're singing of compassion and justice and integrity, that's the pinnacle of what I would have deconstructed the word worship to be, to hold them up as worthy. So by the time we get up there, that's why it goes ascends like that. But then I have to say, are you playing? You're playing this? You with me? Oh, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa.
Ta-da!
As we turn to the light of a new morning, the gift of a new day in which we seek to turn ourselves into light, we light this candle with deep gratitude and no small measure of persistence. In gratitude for the light of the long story to which we belong and the long haul to which we commit ourselves. This light brings us the memory of the light of those who've gone before us, who inspire and light the path before us. Those who share life in community with us. And the light of those who will come after us. The light of the wisdom we give and receive. For all of this, we bring our gratitude and we gather in the midst of light, to be light in the world with one another.
Okay, time for all ages. That means that anyone who wants to can come up here. Come on, carpet time. I've got something really great to show you today. Come on in, come sit. You can come right up to the very tip top of the carpet. That's great. Perfect. Sure. Then there's lots of room behind you. If we pull up, there's room. There's room, and then you don't have to sit on the cold floor. There's room on the carpet. Someone reminded me that we need a bigger carpet. Yes. Well, I brought the most very exciting thing to show you. It is a rock. It's not soft. It's quite hard, like most rocks. Now, it does feel smooth. Now, this rock's name is Ishi. I want to tell you about Ishi. Ishi is Japanese for rock. And I brought a story about Ishi right here. And I wanted to, first, before I read it, I want to tell you why I brought Ishi and why we're going to tell a story about Ishi. Because there's a very wonderful and important thing that all of us can remember. If we're 2 or 3 or 93 or any age, we can remember this. We can, there'll be a chance, okay? Hold on to that idea, okay? Hold your balloon. Then, so the important thing that we can all remember is that every day we can care for ourselves and we can care for each other. Every day we can do that. Every day. There's no day that we can't care for ourselves and care for each other and care for others. And Ishi helps us remember this. This book is called Ishi, Simple Tips from a Solid Friend. And Ishi is a solid friend. It's by Akiko Yabuki. Are you ready? I might have to put Ishi down right here. You stay there. Okay. When something feels impossible, I sleep and rest, and I try again the next day. When I feel bottled up, look, oh, he's stuck in a bottle. I move my body, run, swim, climb a tree. It's a good tip. When I feel stinky, I treat myself to something yummy. When I feel the pressure, I close my eyes and slowly, deeply, quietly breathe. When I feel lonely like a leftover, I reach out to my friends. When I feel like a failure, when things just don't work out, I remind myself that every experience makes me grow. We can learn when we make mistakes, can't we? When I feel I just need a break, look at him, buried in the snow, I take a break. When I feel like the only one who's different, I remind myself that everyone is different. When I feel stuck, he's stuck with some of his larger friends. I tell myself to always move forward, never backwards. It's okay. When nothing makes me feel better, I go outside. Nature has magic. When I feel hopeless, I surround myself with dreamers. People who say, ooh, what if, what about? Ever think of that? When I feel sad thinking about what's missing, I remind myself to focus on what I have and appreciate it. Look at all the slices he has. Oh, so good. When I feel lost, I lean on my friends. I wonder if they ever roll away together when they lean too far. When I feel empty, I give. I wonder who that present's for. Well, Ishi has thought about who it's for. When I feel unhappy, I smile. Smiling is contagious. That means that you can pass it along. So Ishi says, pass it on. Oh, that's the end of Ishi's book. So, could I have Ishi? Thank you for looking after Ishi. I thought Ishi ran away. Ishi's going to remind us. You can find your own Ishi and help. Ishi will help remind you that we can care for ourselves in all these ways that Ishi told us, and we can care for each other. Wow, you're quiet today. Amazing. Okay, so who wants to go to their programs today?
We hear the words of Bernheinrich from the writing, "The Trees in My Forest." Like other species, we evolved in the wilderness. And although we're now able to satisfy many of our physical needs outside it, at least in the short term, psychologically, we still need the vital diversity, complexity, grandeur, and the beauty of wild places. We need to feel connected to something tangible that can be seen, smelled, tasted, that's much greater than our own fleeting existence. Call it religion. There are untold millions who believe in this religion, although they may not come out and say so, because mostly its tenets are so deeply ingrained as to be taken for granted. No organized faith is necessary. To me and others of this religion, a wilderness made by God and or by the mechanism of evolution is at least, if not more, holy than a cathedral made by humans. And to harm it is a desecration. I see enough glimpses of this wilderness in my forest to feel inspired by a feeling of interconnectedness with the web of life. It gives me a dream. It's a realistic dream that's not destructive and that all can take part in and enjoy. In the words of this writer,
Living
And our gratitude to you, Wynne Thompson, for those wonderful words in the music of Don Bessick. These are the words of Christopher Hitchens in his letters to a young contrarian. If you want to stay in for the long haul and lead a life that's free from illusions, either propagated by you or embraced by you, then I suggest you learn to recognize and avoid the symptoms of the zealot, the one who knows they're right. For the dissenter, the skeptical mentality is at least as important as any armor of principle. In the words of this writer,
Good morning. I'm delighted to see you all here, and I hope that I have an opportunity before you leave today. I'll park myself by the front door, and everyone gets a hug on the way out, and I will look forward to that. It's really an honor to be here. It's been an honor to be here over the weekend to engage with people from many different places who have come together to be in a space where an expansive spirituality can be expressed and embraced, created and offered as gift to be taken back to where people have come from. And so to put this together, to invite people to come and be about that work that so often we think we have to do ourselves because there's no place that it really fits in the world, I really want us to express our appreciation not only to Southminster Steinhauer, the spiritual seekers, I can't remember the rest of it, and to Nancy and Christopher for helping make this happen, and for all of the volunteers that put it together, and the gift of your presence and inspiration. So thank you so much for this. My theme is in it for the long haul, because I don't know that there's been a generation that has not felt that they needed to be in something for the long haul, that they needed to see through a project, an undertaking, a vision, an opportunity, a promise to the end in order to pass on to the next generation something that was of merit, of worth, of value in their being together. In 1964, just before she died, Rachel Carson wrote a memoir about her life, finishing it in the last days of her illness, an illness caused by the very realities that she spoke against and passionately fought against for most of her career. And she wrote, mankind is challenged as it has never been challenged before, to prove its own maturity and mastery, not of nature, but of itself. Therein lies our hope and our destiny. Now, I've had a complicated relationship with hope. Oh, it goes back years. One year while on vacation, I had with me Derek Jensen's book, A Language Older Than Words. And Derek Jensen is a passionate environmentalist, speaks with nature, feels it in his body, and so feels its desecration also in his body. And so the book, I was reading sections to my son and to Scott periodically, all of which spoke of catastrophe and spoke of desolation and spoke of a pain that we needed to find our way to live into in order to live beyond. But Derek Jensen also challenged the idea of hope, saying that hope was just this flagrant ignorance of what was really going on. It was what we held to in order to sort of get through the stinky parts to a place that we would be fine. It was often based in an otherworldly, supernatural power of some kind that would intervene and make our lives better because we engaged in it or because we didn't, but it still had our best interests in mind. And so Derek Jensen built into me this objection to hope. I remember the first time I preached a sermon taking apart the idea of hope and saying that we can't hang on to that idea, to that ideal any longer. That we needed to actually do stuff, and we needed to stop talking about hope because it was dangerous. It was a dangerous element. And over the course of the years since that time, I forgot to tell you, my son got so tired of that book that he actually threw it in the garbage while we were on holiday. He got a stiff lecture from Scott, but nonetheless, his point was being made. I know it's hard, Mom, but I want you to shut up about it. The people at West Hill don't have that option. And so I am often not shutting up. Excuse me, but I have dry mouth, so I have to put this in. I won't give you the intimate details today. Anyway. So since reading that book, and he's come out with two others, Endgame 1 and Endgame 2, and I got about 25 pages into Endgame 1 in there on the bottom shelf of a bookcase I don't walk past very often anymore, because I was feeling overwhelmed with his perspective, which is baldly true. So I needed to give myself some space from that. But still, I look at the world and I wonder where on earth we are going to find the fortitude to do what needs to be done over the next little while. That so many things are wrong, that so much has been torn apart, that so much is being cast down, that our hungers and our desires have overtaken nature in ways that we may never recover. John Muir's quote, which you'd find in your bulletin, says, "Nothing dollarable is safe." And we have exploited everything we can find in nature and made it dollarable, right? We've purchased it, we've needed it, we've heated our homes with it, we stream from Netflix with it. We take everything we can from nature and make it dollarable. And if it's dollarable, it's a commodity, and as soon as it's a commodity, it becomes something that John Muir says is not safe. So I look around me with that concept of hope torn apart in my mind and in my heart, and I see that everything has become dollarable to the point that we become not sated by taking it all in. Our hungers aren't appeased. We just want more. And we reach out for more over and over again. And so my lack of hope was deepened and broadened, and it made sense. But in 2018, in February of 2018, I ended up on leave, full-time leave. And I know it was in the midst of my review, and that had been hell, and there'd been all this challenge and energy sapping, and it was no wonder I was on leave, right? Except the leave had nothing to do with my review. The leave was triggered by an instance of climate anxiety. That I had come to a place where I did not believe that we could move on. That I had watched people whose hearts are tender for so much harden those hearts because of the reality of climate. Unable to even entertain the idea that their complicity should be questioned. And so, along with those who make up the fastest rising group of people with mental illness and depression, I joined the ranks of those who have such anxiety and fear about the future based in reality and the reality of climate disaster, and went on full-time leave from West Hill. During that time, I sought to take care of myself, putting in place things that would improve my life. I started meditating. I started organizing my house. I started putting in, making myself little habit checklists so that I can remember that I'm supposed to do this in the morning. And I only just realized a couple of weeks ago I also have to have one for the evening. So I have now one for the evening. I was doing everything I possibly could to become well. I erased probably 90% of the news feeds that I received by email. I simply couldn't read it anymore. My heart was too broken by it. And so I kept resilience.org, and I had to stop it eventually as well, because it wasn't just all about resilience, it was also all about disaster. And I found myself returning to an anxiety that I had had as a young adult when I was agoraphobic and couldn't go outside by myself without experiencing dramatic anxiety. And so I had that for some years, but noticed one day in the bank with my young child in a stroller in front of me that I was fine. I was absolutely fine. Oh my gosh, I'm outside, I'm by myself. I have my daughter, but I didn't have that panic that I felt before. And so I figured that I was cured of that. But when I went on leave, with nowhere to go, no meetings, no church to be at, no anything I needed to do. And Scott, since I was 6 several years ago, does all the grocery shopping. Yes. And the cooking. Yes, yes. I really had nothing to do but care for myself, and I couldn't get out of the house. And Scott kept saying, what do you mean you can't get out of the house? Well, I couldn't get out of the house. I could only get out of the house if I had something I needed to do or go to. And then I could make it and I was fine, but I couldn't just go for a walk. I couldn't just be out there. And so I recognized how deep that sorrow was about the climate. The reason that we heard from Christopher Hitchens today is not because he was a profound atheist and articulate one, but because he says that we have to be skeptical about everything. And so I became, during that period, as I moved myself toward wellness, with an incredible amount of support. As I did that, I realized that one of the things I needed to reconsider was my understanding of hope. That I couldn't just live without hope. I had to find a way to sew it back into my heart, to bring it into my marrow, into my cellular structure, so that I could survive, so that I could be of some kind of value in this, our greatest challenge yet. And Christopher Hitchens says, you have to be a skeptic about everything, not just those things that you think are, worthy of skepticism, but your very own truths, those things you hold dear to you, you must be skeptical of them. And so I went in pursuit of that hope. Along the way, some of the authors that came out to me as significant were Václav Havel is the only one I'm going to talk about, but he was the playwright in Czechoslovakia who continued to again and again and again speak out against the oppression of the communist regime there. To the detriment of his freedom, he was incarcerated many, many times. But he continued to write, and he continued to speak, and he continued to hold on to hope. And he writes that hope is the certainty that something makes sense, regardless of how it turns out. It doesn't matter, whether we fail. The thing is, we have to turn our hearts toward what it is that is going to make that fight worthy, that's going to make sense, that sitting around and doing nothing doesn't make sense, or staying away from something doesn't necessarily make sense. He says it is also this hope above all which gives us the strength to live and continually to try new things, even in conditions that seem as hopeless as ours do here and now. Individual hearts that harmonize into the symphonic pulse beat of culture is a force for change. The unstoppable development of independent culture and the moral awakening of youth. Have we not seen that? So powerfully and so beautifully over these last months, an entire global response triggered by a 16-year-old girl who said, "Why should I bother going to school when the future is going to be destroyed?" Audre Lorde, in the quote that you have in your bulletin, talks about self-care not as being self-indulgence. It's not. Self-care, she says, is about a political statement. It's having the power to engage politically. And Greta Thunberg did that. She took care of herself in a way that made sense to her and that spoke to so many youth around the world. But what are the actions of hope for us? What are the actions of opposition for us? What are the actions of refusal for us? We live in the most affluent society that humanity has ever known. We have billions of dollars of wealth that we are going to hand down to the next generation, to our children, to their children's children, or that we're going to put into our bucket lists and fly around the world, seeing all those beautiful places that we are now privileged to see in our retirement. But one of the things that Václav Havel also says, and this is where I find some of the most powerful tools for hope. He says that cooperation is necessary for dominion. No one can have power over if no one will accept the loss of that. No one will achieve a dominion over a group of people if they refuse to go along with that power. So in our political warfare of self-care, as we seek to knit hope back together in our hearts and in ourselves, in a way that makes sense to us, even if we don't see or live to see or even expect that some kind of survival close to the level of carefree existence that we have had. If we're going to make that happen, what is it that we deny? How do we walk away from whatever dominion is keeping this in place? I don't have the list of things that I read about over the course of this past week. I had one of them, but I folded that page up and moved it away. But the truth is that we live within a system that is built on our desire for things that we don't need. And some of the biggest uprisings that have taken place over the last while have been uprisings as people who are beginning to experience what it's like to not be able to have whatever it is they want. And when whatever it is they want is not accessible to them, they get angry and anxious and upset because we are tuned to getting what it is that we want, instead of being tuned to living with what it is that we need. And so I invite you to find ways to deny that dominion, to deny the consumer culture in which we live, to find new ways to interact with it, to use a flip phone if you find one in your bottom drawer and your Apple iPhone stops working. You know, don't run out and buy a new one. Find a way to make it work. To refuse getting a new set of something because the other, you don't like the color anymore. We need new sheets. We painted the walls. We need new sheets. Forget the latest kitchen gadget. I can scoop an avocado out with a spoon. I don't need a tool to do that. So resist the compulsion to feather your world, your nest, with those things that provide you comfort, and insist upon questioning every element of dominion under which you currently live. It's not easy. And I'm caught in it as deeply and as entrenched as you are. Except for my wardrobe, of course, which comes entirely from Goodwill. Just saying. But I am entrenched in it as deeply as are you. And so I have to question, and I have to challenge, and I have to wonder. And I have to build that hope, one little concept at a time, one response to that concept, one choice based upon that concept, one finger interlocked with that last child who left that last protest and went home, because I want her world to be a world of beauty, and because I don't want her to walk around in the anxiety and loss and depression with which I walked around for months after years of trying to cope. I want us to want for them what it is they need to survive and thrive. I don't care if they have the latest fashion. I don't care if they have 3 sets of different kinds of pots for different things. I don't care if their gardens are filled with plants cultivated in nurseries hundreds of miles away. I care that we give them what it is they need, and that in order to do so, we live only by what it is that we need. This is one of my focus moments on hope. Although it doesn't speak of climate, you can hear it in here. The sun rose. Thank you. It's called We Are Witnesses. The sun rose, illuminating the darkness that had engulfed a city. Hatred, violence, war. Combined, they destroyed everything of light, everything of beauty, everything of every day. We are witnesses, immunized against such tragedy by our 17 and 42 and 60-inch doses of the news, brought to us by floor cleaner and beer and hygiene products. Have we the courage to tear the film from our eyes, to sit amidst the dust and destruction and hear the lament? Have we the strength to walk the streets with ghosts whose sorrow never ends? Have we the will to be witnesses who embrace those who are left pulverized and broken? Have we a hope we would dare utter in places such as these? I now believe that we do. Thank you.
Sometimes there are meanings, values, and purpose in old words and in old patterns that simply need stripping, questioning, digging, and mining for what it is that they might say to us. Bob Hetherington was brilliant at doing that. And we share his words patterned after the Jesus prayer that have done that to these old words to find meaning, to find value, perhaps for us. Let's speak these words and strengthen our intentions this morning. We open to the sacredness at the heart of all, called by many names. We open to deep mystery we trust to be love. May we be faithful to the vision of building a beloved community on earth. May there be daily bread to nourish all hunger, forgiveness for the harm we have done, and the capacity to forgive those who have hurt us. May we not feel abandoned in hard times, but find the strength to meet each moment and the wisdom to walk in the light of deep gratitude. For the light of love is with us now and always.
There is much to fear, but there's more to love. There's much that's been destroyed, but there's more capacity to create. We are not just one light. We are more than that together. We go in the strength of the energy and the capacity we build with one another, because we have the strength and we have the courage to live in the world as it is and as we know it can yet be.